What happens when a team riding high on 7 straight victories suddenly crashes down to earth in the most brutal way possible? Liverpool just found out the hard way in Istanbul, and trust me, what you're about to hear will shock you. Welcome back to Savra Football, where we bring you the real story behind the beautiful game. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell icon, because we're diving deep into one of Liverpool's most disastrous nights in recent Champions League history. Arne Slot's Liverpool just suffered a humiliating 1-0 defeat to Galatasaray in Turkey, and this wasn't just any loss. This was a complete tactical meltdown, a defensive nightmare, and an attacking disaster all rolled into one chaotic 90 minutes at Rams Park. And here's the kicker. They lost to a Galatasaray side that was absolutely demolished 5-1 by Eintracht Frankfurt just weeks ago, but it gets worse, much worse. Liverpool not only failed to score for the first time this season, they also lost to key players to injury, including their goalkeeper Alisson Becker. And this comes just 3 days after being upset by Crystal Palace in the Premier League. So what went wrong? How did Liverpool go from 7 wins in a row to 2 consecutive defeats? Is Arne Slot's tactical approach being exposed? And should Liverpool fans be worried about their season falling apart? Stay tuned because we're breaking down every single detail: the player ratings, the tactical failures, the controversial VAR decisions, and what this means for Liverpool's upcoming clash against Chelsea. This is the full story of Liverpool's nightmare in Istanbul. Let's set the scene. Liverpool traveled to Istanbul riding a wave of confidence after 7 consecutive victories in all competitions. Arne Slot seemed to have found his rhythm at Anfield. The team was scoring goals and everything looked promising. But football has a funny way of humbling even the best teams, and that's exactly what happened at Rams Park. From the opening whistle, something felt off about Liverpool. The intensity wasn't there, the passing was sloppy, and the defensive organization that had served them well during their winning streak had completely evaporated. Galatasaray, energized by their passionate home crowd, sensed blood in the water. And then came the moment that changed everything. Just 16 minutes into the match, controversy struck. Boris Alper Yilmaz went down in the Liverpool penalty area after minimal contact with Dominic Szoboszlai's hand. Now, let me be clear here. This was one of the softest penalties you'll ever see in Champions League football. Szoboszlai's hand barely flicked Yilmaz's face, but the Turkish winger made the most of it, and the referee pointed to the spot. Step up Victor Osimhen. The Nigerian striker, who's been in sensational form, calmly converted the penalty past Alisson Becker, who got a hand to it but couldn't keep it out. 1-0 Galatasaray, and Liverpool were suddenly chasing the game in one of the most hostile atmospheres in European football. But here's what's really concerning for Liverpool fans. After going behind, the Reds showed absolutely no response. No urgency, no creativity, no fight. It was as if they'd accepted their fate in the 16th minute. And for a team with Liverpool's pedigree and quality, that's simply unacceptable. The penalty incident exposed 2 major problems. First, Szoboszlai was playing out of position at right back, a tactical decision by Arne Slot that we'll discuss more later. Second, Liverpool's discipline and concentration were completely absent. In Champions League football, you cannot afford to make careless mistakes like that, especially away from home. Now let's talk about Liverpool's defense, because this is where things get really ugly. If you thought the penalty was bad, wait until you hear about the defensive chaos that followed throughout the entire 90 minutes. Let's start with Ibrahima Konate, and Liverpool fans, you might want to look away for this part. The French defender has been under intense scrutiny after his horror show against Crystal Palace just 3 days earlier, and unfortunately for him and for Liverpool, he followed that up with another nightmare performance in Istanbul. Konate was given a shocking 3 out of 10 rating, and honestly, that might even be generous. The most alarming moment came shortly after halftime when Konate played an absolutely dreadful pass to Ryan Gravenberch that should have resulted in Victor Osimhen doubling Galatasaray's lead. We're talking about a pass so bad that it defied belief. How did Osimhen not score? Only he knows. But Konate got away with one there, and Arne Slot must be asking himself serious questions about whether this defender can be trusted in big games. The report described him an accident waiting to happen, and that as a damning assessment of a player who is supposed to be one of Liverpool's defensive leaders. Now, let's contrast that with Virgil van Dijk. The Dutch captain was once again visibly frustrated with those around him throughout the match, and you can understand why. Van Dijk actually played reasonably well, earning a 6 out of 10 rating. He was organizing, commanding, trying to keep things together, but when you're surrounded by players having nightmares, there's only so much one man can do, even if that man is Virgil van Dijk. Then we have the bizarre tactical decision to play Dominik Szoboszlai at right back. Now, Szoboszlai is a talented midfielder, but he's not a defender. He'd already been beaten for pace once before the penalty incident, and while he looked more comfortable after being moved into midfield in the second half, the damage was done. This tactical experiment from Arne Slot backfired spectacularly, and it raises questions about Liverpool's squad depth and Slot's decision-making in crucial matches. At left back, Milos Kerkez received a 5 out of 10. He showed aggression and did a decent job defensively, but he wasn't offering nearly enough going forward. In modern football, your fullbacks need to be threats in attack, especially when you're chasing a game, and Kerkez simply didn't deliver that cutting edge. And then came the injury blow. Alisson Becker, Liverpool's world-class Brazilian goalkeeper, appeared to injure himself while making a crucial save from Osimhen in the second half. Alisson had actually been one of Liverpool's better performers, making a couple of vital stops and nearly getting to the penalty. Losing him to injury is a massive blow, especially with a crucial Premier League clash against Chelsea coming up at Stamford Bridge this Saturday. His replacement, Georgi Mamardashvili, came on and had very little to do, which tells you that despite all of Galatasaray's attacking threat, Liverpool's problems were more about their own disorganization than being overrun by the opposition. Let's move into the engine room, because Liverpool's midfield was absolutely non-existent in Istanbul, and that starts with Ryan Gravenberch. Now, if you've been following Liverpool this season, you'll know that Gravenberch has been instrumental in their success. There's a simple formula. When Gravenberch plays well, Liverpool play well. When he doesn't, they struggle, and in Istanbul, he was absolutely dreadful. Gravenberch received a disappointing 4 out of 10 rating, and it was fully deserved. The Dutch midfielder never got to grips with the stop-start nature of the game. You know how Champions League matches away from home can be, especially in Turkey. The referee's whistle is constantly blowing, the crowd is relentless, the opposition is physical. Gravenberch couldn't handle it. He was uncharacteristically sloppy in possession, losing the ball in dangerous areas, failing to impose himself physically, and showing none of the composure that had made him so impressive during Liverpool's 7-game winning streak. Arne Slot recognized the problem and rightly substituted him. The Reds desperately tried to turn things around, bringing on Alexander Isak to add more attacking threat. But the damage was done. Without Gravenberch controlling the tempo and dictating play from deep, Liverpool had no foundation, no platform to build attacks from. The one shining light in midfield was Curtis Jones, who earned a solid 6 out of 10 rating. Jones was one of Liverpool's better players on the ball, showing the technical quality and composure that his teammates were lacking. But more importantly, he showed the intensity and fight required in such a hostile atmosphere. His brilliant, potentially goal-saving challenge on Victor Osimhen was a highlight in an otherwise forgettable performance from the team. Jones proved he belongs at this level, and Arne Slot will be hoping more of his players show the kind of character in future matches. And then we come to the £100 million question. Florian Wirtz, Liverpool's big money signing from Bayer Leverkusen, received a 5 out of 10 rating, and the assessment was brutal but fair. The German had one of Liverpool's better efforts in the first half, but as the report stated, there's just no disguising it. Wirtz is not doing anywhere near enough for a player who cost £100 million. Think about that for a moment. £100 million. That's the kind of money that should guarantee you a match winner. a game changer, someone who can grab a match by the scruff of the neck when things aren't going well. But in Istanbul, when Liverpool needed their star signing to step up, Wirtz was anonymous. He wasn't creating chances, he wasn't driving forward with the ball, he wasn't providing that spark of creativity that could unlock Galatasaray's defense. This is becoming a worrying pattern for Wirtz at Liverpool. Yes, he's still settling into a new league and a new team, but at some point, elite players need to deliver elite performances, especially in big Champions League matches. Liverpool fans invested their hopes in this signing, and right now, they're not seeing the return on that investment. Now let's talk about Liverpool's attack, or should I say, the complete absence of one. For the first time this season, Liverpool failed to score a single goal, and against a Galatasaray side that had conceded 5 goals to Eintracht Frankfurt. That's nothing short of embarrassing. Let's start with the front three that Arne Slot selected. Cody Gakpo on the left, Hugo Ekitike through the middle, and Jeremy Frimpong on the right. On paper, that's a decent attacking lineup with pace, movement, and goal threat. In reality, it was a complete disaster. Cody Gakpo received a disappointing 4 out of 10 rating, and this is becoming a serious concern for Liverpool. The Netherlands international actually went closer to scoring in the first half, having an improvised effort cleared off the line, but overall, this was another worryingly ineffective display. Gakpo has shown flashes of brilliance since joining Liverpool, but consistency has been his biggest problem. In big games, when the team needs him to deliver, he goes missing. It's no surprise that Arne Slot hooked him midway through the second half, but by then, Liverpool's attacking impotence was already painfully obvious. Hugo Ekitike was probably Liverpool's brightest attacking spark, earning a 6 out of 10 rating. The French striker should have scored after being put through on goal in the first half. If we were being brutally honest, that was a golden opportunity that a striker of his caliber simply must convert. He almost scored with a clever back flick at one point, showing the technical quality and inventiveness that made Liverpool sign him, but then disaster struck. Ekitike was forced off through injury, although there's some hope it might have just been cramp. Either way, losing another attacking player to injury on top of Alisson is a nightmare scenario for Arne Slot. And then there's Jeremy Frimpong. Oh boy, where do we start with this one? The Dutch winger received a harsh but fair 4 out of 10 rating, and the assessment was damning. If Frimpong is meant to be the Mohamed Salah replacement while the Egyptian is away on Africa Cup of Nations duty, Liverpool are in big trouble. Think about that statement for a moment. Mohamed Salah has been Liverpool's most consistent attacking threat for years. He's a living legend at Anfield, a player who can create something out of nothing, who can win matches single-handedly. And Frimpong is supposed to fill those shoes? Based on what we saw in Istanbul, that's a petrified prospect for Liverpool fans. Frimpong did create one good chance for Ekitike, but he was poor overall, and his Liverpool career has yet to really get going since his summer transfer. Which brings us to Mohamed Salah himself. The Egyptian king was brought off the bench in the second half as Arne Slot desperately searched for an equalizer. Salah slotted into his usual berth on the right wing after Frimpong was withdrawn, and Liverpool fans watching around the world must have thought, finally, here comes our savior, but it never happened. Salah received just a 5 out of 10 rating because he simply failed to get into the game. Now, to be fair to Salah, he was coming off the bench cold in a hostile environment with his team already trailing and playing poorly. The service into him was non-existent, and he had very little time to make an impact. But for a player of Salah's quality and experience, you expect more. You expect him to create something, to demand the ball, to take responsibility. Alexander Isak also came off the bench, replacing Gravenberch and immediately going up front with Ekitike moving out wide. Isak got a sight of goal immediately after coming on, but like so many Liverpool players on this nightmare night, he didn't make the most of it. Another 5 out of 10 rating, another attacking substitution that failed to change the game. The harsh reality is this: Liverpool's attack looked toothless, predictable, and completely devoid of ideas. They managed 0 goals against a team that shipped 5 to Frankfurt. That's a red flag the size of the Anfield Cup, and Arne Slot needs to find solutions fast. Now we need to talk about the man in the dugout, because Arne Slot received a brutal 3 out of 10 rating for his performance, and frankly, it's hard to argue with that assessment. This was a tactical masterclass from Galatasaray's coaching staff and a tactical disaster from Liverpool's new manager. Let's break down where it all went wrong for Slot. First and foremost, the decision to start Jeremy Frimpong on the right wing and play Dominic Szoboszlai at right back instead backfired spectacularly. This wasn't just a minor tactical tweak, this was a fundamental misunderstanding of his players' strengths and the demands of the match. Szoboszlai is a central midfielder, a player who thrives in the middle of the park, where he can influence the game with his passing, his movement, and his technical ability. Asking him to play right back against a dangerous Galatasaray attack in one of the most intimidating stadiums in Europe was asking for trouble. And that's exactly what Liverpool got. The penalty incident, the times he was beaten for pace, these weren't coincidences. These were the inevitable consequences of playing a player out of position in a high-stakes Champions League match. But here's what's really puzzling: Liverpool have proper defenders. They have players who actually play in those positions. So why the experiment? Why now? Why in a crucial Champions League away fixture? If Slot wanted to rest players or try something different, surely a Premier League match against a lower-table team would be the time to do it, not a Champions League night in Istanbul. The second major tactical error was persisting with Ibrahima Konate in defense. Now, the report speculates that Slot stuck with Konate because Joe Gomez is still not match fit, and if that's true, it's understandable from a selection standpoint. But after Konate's horror show against Crystal Palace, and then another disastrous performance in Istanbul, questions have to be asked. Is Konate mentally in the right place? Does he have the concentration and composure required for these high-pressure situations? Because right now, the answer appears to be no. Slot's substitutions also came under scrutiny. He brought on Conor Bradley for Frimpong, and the young right-back immediately took over at right-back from Szoboszlai. Bradley received a 4 out of 10 rating after making a mess of a clear header with 20 minutes to go and picking up a booking for a rash challenge. The substitution didn't solve the problem, it just created a different one. Alexis Mac Allister was introduced in place of the injured Ekitike, but the Argentine didn't add the control to Liverpool's loose play that Slot was clearly hoping for. Another 5 out of 10 rating, another substitution that failed to change the momentum of the match. Here's the thing about Arne Slot: he came to Liverpool with a big reputation after his success at Feyenoord. He started his Liverpool career with 7 consecutive wins, and everyone was talking about how seamlessly he'd replace Jurgen Klopp. But now, after 2 consecutive defeats to Crystal Palace and Galatasaray, we're seeing the cracks. We're seeing that this Liverpool team, far less than the sum of its parts, still disjointed, still trying to figure out Slot's system. The report's assessment was damning. Slot is looking lost without late goals. During that 7-game winning streak, Liverpool had a habit of scoring late goals to rescue results. They were relying on individual moments of brilliance rather than cohesive team performances. And when those late goals didn't come against Palace and Galatasaray, the underlying problems were exposed for everyone to see. Tactically, Liverpool looked confused. Were they trying to press high? Not really. Were they sitting deep and counter-attacking? Not that either. Were they trying to control possession and dominate the midfield? Absolutely not, with Gravenberch having a nightmare. There was no clear identity, no clear game plan, and when things went wrong early with the penalty, there was no plan B. One of the most concerning aspects was Liverpool's inability to respond to going behind. Elite teams, teams with Champions League ambitions, don't just fold when they concede an early goal. They show character, they show fight, they impose themselves on the opposition. Liverpool did none of that. They accepted their fate and sleepwalked through large portions of the match. Now, let us talk about one of the most dramatic and controversial moments of the entire match, the late penalty drama that had Liverpool fans around the world holding their breath, only to have their hearts broken once again. Picture this. Liverpool are desperately pushing for an equalizer in the closing stages of the match. The clock is ticking down, Arne Slot has thrown everything forward, and then it happens. Ibrahima Konate goes down in the Galatasaray penalty area. The referee points to the spot. Penalty to Liverpool. This is it. This is their lifeline. Their chance to salvage something from this disastrous night in Istanbul. But wait, VAR is checking, the replays are being reviewed. And then, the decision that crushed Liverpool's hopes, the penalty is overturned. No spot kick, no lifeline, no rescue mission. The so-called foul on Konate was deemed not enough for a penalty, and Liverpool's last chance of getting something from this match evaporated into the hostile Istanbul night. Now, was it the right decision? That's where it gets interesting. The report describes it as a foul on Konate in quotation marks, suggesting there was doubt about whether it was actually a foul at all. If we're being honest, after seeing Galatasaray awarded such a soft penalty for the Szoboszlai incident in the first half, Liverpool fans had every right to feel aggrieved. The inconsistency in officiating was glaring. If minimal contact on Yilmaz's face was enough for a penalty, why wasn't the challenge on Konate? But here's the harsh truth that Liverpool fans need to hear. You cannot rely on referees or VAR to bail you out when you've been as poor as Liverpool were for the entire 90 minutes. Yes, the officiating was inconsistent. Yes, there's an argument that Liverpool should have had a penalty. But when you fail to create clear-cut chances, when you fail to test the goalkeeper, when you're playing with no intensity or creativity, you don't deserve to win football matches at this level. Let's talk about the opportunities Liverpool did have, because it wasn't as if they created nothing. Cody Gakpo had that improvised effort cleared off the line in the first half. Hugo Ekitike should have scored when he was put through on goal. That was a golden chance that could have changed the entire complexion of the match. Conor Bradley made a mess of a clear header with 20 minutes to go. Alexander Isak got a sight of goal immediately after coming off the bench, but didn't make the most of it. These are the moments that separate good teams from great teams. These are the moments that determine whether you advance in the Champions League or crash out. And Liverpool failed to capitalize on any of them. The frustrating part for Liverpool supporters is that this Galatasaray team is not unbeatable. Remember, they were hammered 5-1 by Eintracht Frankfurt in their Champions League opener. This is not Bayern Munich or Real Madrid we're talking about. This is a team that Liverpool, on paper, should be beating, especially with the quality and depth in their squad. But football isn't played on paper, it's played on the pitch, and on this particular night, Galatasaray wanted it more. They were hungrier, more organized, more disciplined, and more clinical when it mattered. Victor Osimhen took his penalty, Liverpool's attackers missed their chances. That's the difference between winning and losing at this level. The VAR controversy will dominate the headlines, and Liverpool fans will debate it for weeks. But the real story isn't about a late penalty decision. The real story is about a team that looked lost, a manager who got his tactics wrong, and a performance that raises serious questions about Liverpool's ambitions for this season. If the defeat itself wasn't bad enough, Liverpool now face an injury crisis that could derail their entire season. Let's talk about the casualties from this nightmare in Istanbul, because the implications are absolutely massive. First and foremost, Alisson Becker, Liverpool's world-class Brazilian goalkeeper, appeared to injure himself while making the crucial save from Victor Osimhen in the second half. Now, the exact nature and severity of the injury haven't been confirmed yet, but any injury to Alisson is a massive concern for Liverpool. This is a goalkeeper who has been one of the most consistent performers in world football for years. He's won the Premier League, the Champions League. He's been named the best goalkeeper in the world. You simply cannot replace that level of quality and experience easily. Georgi Mamardashvili came on to replace him and had very little to do, which is fortunate, Because being thrown into a hostile Champions League away match at short notice is never easy for any goalkeeper. But the big question now is, will Alisson be fit for Saturday's crucial Premier League clash against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge? Because if he's not, Liverpool are going into one of the toughest fixtures on the calendar without their number one goalkeeper. Then there's Hugo Ekitike. The French striker was one of Liverpool's few bright spots in attack, and then he too was forced off through injury. Now, there's some hope that it might have just been cramp rather than a serious muscle injury, but we won't know for sure until Liverpool release an official update. If Ekitike is out for any length of time, that's another attacking option gone from Arne Slot's already struggling forward line. So let's assess the damage. Liverpool are potentially without Alisson and Ekitike for the Chelsea match. They've just lost to consecutive games after winning 7 straight. Their confidence is shot, their defensive organization is in shambles, their midfield is malfunctioning, their attack is toothless. And now they have to travel to Stamford Bridge to face a Chelsea team that will be smelling blood in the water. Chelsea versus Liverpool, Stamford Bridge. Saturday at 5:30 p.m. This is one of the biggest fixtures in English football, a match that always delivers drama, intensity, and quality. But right now, Liverpool are walking into a potential disaster. Think about it from Chelsea's perspective. They'll have watched Liverpool's performances against Crystal Palace and Galatasaray. They'll have seen the defensive vulnerabilities, the midfield struggles, the attacking impotence. They'll have noted that Ibrahima Konate is a liability, that Ryan Gravenberch can be rattled in high-pressure situations, that Liverpool's new signings aren't delivering. Chelsea will be licking their lips at the prospect of facing this fragile, disjointed Liverpool team. And it's not just about the football, it's about the psychology. Liverpool's players will be low on confidence after 2 straight defeats. They'll be questioning themselves, questioning the tactics, questioning whether they can turn this around. Meanwhile, Chelsea will be full of belief, energized by their opponent's struggles, ready to pile more misery on the traveling Reds. The injury situation makes it even worse. If Alisson is out, Mamardashvili will have to make his Premier League debut in one of the most hostile environments in English football. If Ekitike is unavailable, Liverpool's already struggling attack loses another option. These aren't just squad rotation concerns. These are fundamental problems that could determine whether Liverpool can compete for major honors this season. Arne Slot is facing the biggest test of his Liverpool tenure so far. 2 consecutive defeats could very easily become 3. The pressure is mounting, the critics are circling, and the fans are starting to worry. This is the moment where Slot needs to show his quality as a manager. Can he rally his troops? Can he fix the tactical issues? Can he restore confidence and organization to a team that looks completely lost? The bottom line, and this is crucial for Liverpool fans to understand, unless Arne Slot finds some solutions, and finds them fast, this season could spiral out of control very quickly. We're not talking about a minor blip anymore. We're talking about a team in crisis, a manager under pressure, and a squad that's far less than the sum of its very expensive parts. Let's zoom out for a moment and look at the bigger picture, because this defeat in Istanbul isn't just about one bad result. This is about the trajectory of Liverpool's entire season, and right now, that trajectory is pointing in a very worrying direction. When Arne Slot arrived at Liverpool in the summer, replacing the legendary Jurgen Klopp, there was always going to be immense pressure. Klopp had built Liverpool into a powerhouse, winning the Premier League, the Champions League, multiple domestic trophies, and creating an identity and culture that made Anfield one of the most feared stadiums in world football. Those are impossibly big shoes to fill. To Slot's credit, he started brilliantly. 7 wins in a row in all competitions had Liverpool fans thinking maybe, just maybe, this transition would be seamless. Maybe Slot was the perfect successor. Maybe Liverpool wouldn't miss a beat. But football has a way of exposing weaknesses, and the last 2 matches have done exactly that. Here's what we've learned. Liverpool's defensive structure is fragile. Ibrahima Konate is not reliable in high-pressure situations. Virgil van Dijk, as good as he is individually, cannot carry the entire defense on his shoulders. The decision to play midfielders as fullbacks is a desperate measure that suggests either tactical naivety or a lack of quality depth in those positions. We've learned that Liverpool's midfield, so dependent on Ryan Gravenberch's form, can completely collapse when he has an off day. There's no plan B in the engine room, no alternative way to control matches when the first approach isn't working. We've learned that Liverpool's big money signings are not delivering. Florian Wirtz, £100 million from Bayer Leverkusen, is anonymous in big games. Jeremy Frimpong looks lost and nowhere near ready to replace Mohamed Salah when the Egyptian goes on Africa Cup of Nations duty. These are players who were supposed to take Liverpool to the next level, and right now, they're making the team worse. And perhaps most worryingly, we've learned that Liverpool's attacking play is predictable and easy to defend against. When they don't get late goals to bail them out, when individual brilliance doesn't rescue poor collective performances, Liverpool have no answers. Now, let's talk about the Champions League implications. This is Liverpool's second match in the league phase of the new Champions League format, and they've just lost to a team that conceded 5 goals to Eintracht Frankfurt. That's a bad loss, the kind of result that can come back to haunt you when the final standings are calculated. Liverpool need to qualify from this league phase, and defeats like this make that task much harder. But it's not just about the Champions League. It's about the Premier League title race, too. Liverpool started the season with ambitions of challenging for the title, but how can they do that if they're losing to Crystal Palace and struggling against mid-table teams? The Chelsea match on Saturday becomes absolutely critical. Lose that and Liverpool will have lost 3 consecutive matches. At that point, we're not talking about a blip, we're talking about a crisis. The pressure on Arne Slot is mounting rapidly. Fans were patient during the winning streak, happy to give the new manager time to implement his ideas. But patience wears thin very quickly when results turn negative, especially at a club like Liverpool where expectations are sky high. Slot needs to show he can respond to adversity, that he can fix problems, that he can turn this ship around before it crashed completely. Let's also consider the psychological aspect. Confidence in football is everything. When players are confident, they try things, they take risks, they play with freedom. When confidence evaporates, players become hesitant, they make mistakes, they second-guess themselves. Right now, Liverpool's confidence is at rock bottom. You could see it in Istanbul, players not wanting the ball, not taking responsibility, not showing the character required at this level. Arne Slot needs to rebuild that confidence, and he needs to do it in the space of a few days before facing Chelsea. That's an enormous challenge. How do you convince players who've just produced 2 awful performances that they were good enough to win at Stamford Bridge? Here is the uncomfortable truth for Liverpool fans. This team is not good enough right now to compete for major honors. The defense is unreliable, the midfield is inconsistent, the attack is misfiring, and the tactical approach is confused. Unless significant improvements happen very quickly, this season will be remembered as a disappointment, a painful transition year where Liverpool fell short of their ambitions. So where does this leave Liverpool? Where does this leave Arne Slot? And most importantly, where does this leave the fans who invest their hearts, their passion, and their unwavering support into this great football club? The truth is, we're at a crossroads. Liverpool can either respond to this adversity with character and determination, showing the mental strength that's defined this club for decades, or they can crumble under the pressure and watch their season slip away before it's barely begun. The choice is theirs. History tells us that Liverpool are at their best when their backs are against the wall. This is a club built on resilience, on fighting spirit, on never giving up. Think about Istanbul 2005, the miracle of Champions League comebacks. Think about the Premier League title race under Jurgen Klopp when they pushed Manchester City all the way. Think about all the times Liverpool have been written off, only to come roaring back stronger than ever. Can Arne Slot inspire that same spirit? Can he galvanize these players and remind them what it means to wear that Liverpool shirt? Can he turn this nightmare into a catalyst for success? We're about to find out. The Chelsea match on Saturday is more than just 3 points. It's about pride. It's about character. It's about proving to the world that this Liverpool team has what it takes to compete at the highest level. It's about Arne Slot showing he's the right man for this massive job. It's about the players showing they deserve to wear the famous red jersey. And for the fans, this is where your support matters most. Yes, these last 2 performances have been disappointing, frustrating, even infuriating. But this is when your team needs you most, not when they're winning 7 in a row and everything's going perfectly. Not when late goals are bailing them out and papering over the cracks. Right now, in this moment of crisis, your support can make the difference. Before we wrap up, I want to hear from you, the Safra football community. What do you think about Liverpool's performance in Istanbul? Do you think Arne Slot is the right manager for Liverpool, or is he already showing signs that he's out of his depth? Should Ibrahima Konate be dropped immediately, or does he deserve more time to find his form? Is Florian Wirtz destined to be a £100 million flop, or will he come good eventually? And most importantly, can Liverpool bounce back and beat Chelsea on Saturday, or are we looking at 3 defeats in a row? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. Let's have a proper football discussion. I read every single comment, and I love hearing different perspectives from fans all around the world. Whether you're a Liverpool supporter heartbroken by what you've seen, a rival fan enjoying their struggles, or a neutral observer analyzing the tactical nuances, your opinion matters here at Safra Football. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the family. We bring you honest, in-depth football analysis without the sugarcoating. We tell it like it is, even when the truth is uncomfortable. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our coverage of the biggest stories in football. And for those of you who've been with us from the beginning, thank you. Your support means everything. Give this video a thumbs up if you found the analysis helpful. Share it with your football-loving friends, and let's grow this community together. The beautiful game is full of ups and downs, triumphs and disasters, moments of brilliance and nights of despair. That's what makes football so compelling, so emotional, so utterly captivating. Liverpool are going through a rough patch right now, but this story is far from over. Will Arne Slot turn it around? Will Liverpool rediscover their winning formula? Will the injury crisis derail their season, or will they find a way to overcome it? We'll be here covering every twist and turn, every tactical decision, every controversial moment. This is Safra Football, bringing you the real story behind the beautiful game. The Champions League continues, the Premier League battle intensifies, and we'll be right here breaking it all down for you. Until next time, keep supporting your team through thick and thin, keep believing in the beautiful game, and remember, it's not about how you fall, it's about how you get back up. Stay passionate, stay informed, and most importantly, stay tuned to Safra Football for all your football analysis needs. So the question everyone at Liverpool needs to be asking right now is, how do we fix this? Because complaining about the problems is easy, but finding solutions is what separates good managers from great ones, and this is Arne Slot's moment to prove which category he belongs in. Let's start with the defensive issues, because that's where Liverpool are bleeding the most. Ibrahima Konate cannot continue starting matches in this form. The man is a liability, and no matter how much potential he has, you cannot persist with a player who makes critical errors game after game. If Joe Gomez is not match fit, then Slot needs to look at other options. Can Jarell Quansah step up? Can they shift to a back 3 to provide more defensive cover? Can they bring in someone from the academy who might not have the experience, but at least woe and make catastrophic mistakes? The fullback situation needs addressing immediately. Playing Dominik Szoboszlai at right back was a failed experiment, and it cannot happen again. Szoboszlai is too valuable in midfield to be wasted in a defensive position where he is uncomfortable and ineffective. If Trent Alexander-Arnold is injured or being rested, then play Conor Bradley. If Bradley isn't ready, Find another solution, but don't compromise your midfield to patch up your defense. In midfield, Ryan Gravenberch needs support. You cannot have a system that's entirely dependent on one player having a good game. When Gravenberch struggles, someone else needs to step up and take control. Curtis Jones showed in Istanbul that he has the mentality and quality to perform in big matches. Perhaps he needs more responsibility, more freedom to dictate play when Gravenberch is off his game. And then there's the Florian Wirtz problem. £100 million is a massive investment, and Liverpool need to get more out of him. Is he being played in the wrong position? Is he being given the wrong instructions? Is the team not set up to maximize his strengths? These are questions Arne Slot needs to answer urgently, because right now, Wirtz looks like one of the most expensive flops in Premier League history, and it's only been a few months. The attacking issues are perhaps the most complex to solve. Liverpool's forward line lacks cohesion and creativity. They're not creating enough chances, they're not making good decisions in the final third, and they're missing the chances they do create. This is partly a personnel issue. Maybe the players aren't good enough, but it is also a coaching issue. What patterns of play are Liverpool working on in training? How are they supposed to break down deep defenses? What's the plan when teams sit back and defend? Mohamed Salah is not getting any younger, and while he remains a world-class player, Liverpool cannot continue relying on him to bail them out every single match. They need other attackers to step up. Cody Gakpo needs to find consistency. Jeremy Frimpong needs to adapt to the Premier League quickly. Hugo Ekitike needs to be more clinical. These are the standards required at Liverpool Football Club. Now, let's talk about what needs to happen against Chelsea on Saturday. First, Arne Slot needs to go back to basics. No more tactical experiments, no more playing people out of position, no more trying to be clever. Pick your best 11 players, put them in their natural positions, and let them play with freedom and confidence. Second, Liverpool need to start fast. They cannot afford to concede an early goal like they did against Galatasaray. The psychological damage of going behind early in their current state could be catastrophic. They need to be aggressive, they need to press high, they need to put Chelsea on the back foot from the opening whistle. Third, someone needs to take responsibility. Whether it's Virgil van Dijk, Mohamed Salah, or Curtis Jones, Liverpool need leaders on that pitch who will demand more from their teammates, who will organize the defense, who will drive the team forward when things get difficult. So what's the final verdict on Liverpool's nightmare in Istanbul? This was a damning indictment of where Liverpool are right now under Arne Slot. This was a performance completely devoid of quality, intensity, organization, and character. From the goalkeeper to the attackers, from the starting 11 to the substitutes, almost everyone failed. The 1-0 scoreline actually flatters Liverpool. Galatasaray could and should have scored more goals. The fact that they didn't says more about their own wastefulness than Liverpool's defensive competence. Arne Slot's tactical decisions were baffling and backfired spectacularly. His substitutions didn't change the game, his team selection was questionable. And most worryingly, there was no clear plan, no identity, no philosophy visible in Liverpool's play. The injury crisis adds another layer of difficulty to an already challenging situation. Losing Alisson and potentially Ekitike before a crucial match against Chelsea is the last thing Liverpool needed. But here's what Liverpool fans need to remember. It's still early in the season. Yes, 2 consecutive defeats are concerning, but they're not catastrophic. There's still time to turn this around. Still time for Arne Slot to find solutions. Still time for the players to step up and show what they're capable of. However, and this is critical, the Chelsea match is absolutely vital. 3 defeats in a row would represent a genuine crisis. The confidence would be shattered, the pressure would be immense, and Liverpool's season could unravel very quickly.